Well, welcome everyone to your NYCP June Talking Circle. Thank you for joining us today. I know some of you may have begun some forms of summer break or vacation, so we appreciate you taking a little time out from that or from busy summer programs with your students. Let's go ahead and get our disclaimer out of the way. This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, which I'm sure some of you can now say in your sleep, we have a few things we're going to talk about today. We have some reminders from OIE. We want to talk a bit about the project directors meeting that occurred in May. Also, some important upcoming events that are on the calendar, and then a little touch base on reassessing your budget as we enter into what is the last half of the grant year and the very end bits of most folks' grants. Of course, with us today, we have your NYCP Program Officer, Donna Bussell.
Hi, everybody. Glad you all are here. Nice to see you guys.
And then I know normally your facilitator is Olani, and clearly I am not Olani, but Olani is under the weather today, and so she wasn't able to join us for the talking circle. But don't worry, I have all of her content. You're still going to get all of the same good stuff. And then you'll just have to check back in August for the next talking circle to see Olani. So as we get started today, one of the things that we noticed at the project director meeting was that when people were registering, there seemed to be a little confusion regarding the acronyms for various programs and what the different discretionary grant programs were at OIE. And so we really wanted to just kind of make sure that everybody fully understood what the different discretionary grant programs were, what the acronyms were, and which one you were. So that when you're being asked to register for things or when you're being asked about your grant, that everybody's on the same page. So we have in the discretionary grant area 5 different grant programs. The first, and the one that all of you are, is the demonstration grants for Indian children, which is often just referred to as demo grants. But within that, there are 2 priorities. The Native Youth Community Projects priority, which is NYCP. And right now, that might be you as a fiscal year 17, you might be on no cost extension, or it might be you as a fiscal year 18 and you're entering the end of your grant. But we often just refer to you as NYCP, hence NYCP Talking Circle. The other priority that is also a demo grantee is Accessing Choices in Education, which is often just referred to as ACE, and they only have 1 cohort from fiscal year 20. Now, the other programs, we have a Native American language program. That one's really typically just referred to as NAL at ED, and that has a fiscal year 20 cohort and has a new competition out right now. So if that's of interest to anyone, you should head over to the OIE website and check out the new NAL ED competition. Then we have the Indian Education Professional Development Program. That one's often just referred to as PD, and that's the one that works with teachers looking to be certified and administrators. They have a couple of different cohorts, including a fiscal year 21 that just started this last year. We also have the State Tribal Education Partnership, typically just referred to as the STEP program. That one is only open to tribal educational agencies. You'll see there's just a fiscal year 20 cohort. And then our newest grant program is the American Rescue Plan, American Indian Resilience and Education. And those are our ARP Air grantees that were just awarded back in November. So just to kind of make sure everyone has kind of a handle on all those different programs. And if you have questions about any of those, whether it be about the programs themselves, the acronyms, the names, Feel free to either unmute and ask or pop those in the chat. The other thing we noticed was there a little bit of confusion sometimes about people's roles as well. So first, before we even talk about that, I want to make sure that you know there are going to be titles through OIE that may not match up with your actual job title in your organization. So for instance, as we look at this first one in red, the project director, every OIE discretionary grant has to have a project director. It's an official and required role. That's who's listed on the GAN as the project director, and it's the primary point of contact with OIE. Now, your job title in your organization might not be project director. It might be program coordinator. It might be teacher. It might be principal. It might be superintendent. It might be CEO, executive director. Who knows what your job title might be in your organization. But when it comes to the grant, someone has to be the project director as it stands with the grant. Okay, so it's really important to know on your grant, who's the project director. We had a number of people who registered for the project director meeting, which was open to not just project directors, but that registered as the project director for their grant. We had one grantee who had 4 people register as their project director, and none of them were the project director. So remember that no matter what your job title in your organization, important to know who the actual project director is for your grant. Then there's the authorized representative. This is another official and required role. This is the person who signs off on your APR and is the other point of contact with OIE. A lot of times that's going to be people like, might be your superintendent, might be your tribal chairperson. Sometimes it's your head fiscal person. So it does vary because each organization picks who that is, but that is an official person. It doesn't change all the time. It's whoever's indicated also on that GAN. Then there's such a role as an evaluator. That is not a required role. None of the OIE discretionary grants require that you have an evaluator, although many of you have it included as part of your project. Then there's program or project coordinator. Again, this is not a required role, but it's a common role that we see in a lot of programs. And often this might be the person who truly is doing more of the day-to-day things, but is not the official project director in G5. And then finally, fiscal staff. This is going to be the person who is responsible for drawdowns in G5. And if you don't know who's responsible for your drawdowns in G5, that's another thing where you're going to want to figure out who is your key fiscal person, the person who does your drawdowns for your grant in G5. Any questions on the various roles? Okay. Well, then I know that was probably not as exciting, but I'd like to share what I think will be a little bit more exciting as we hop into a little bit of a recap of the project directors meeting. So looking across your names, I think most of you, not quite all, but most of you were in attendance at the project director meeting that occurred from May 10th to 12th. We had a total of 297 attendees, and that's just grantee attendees. That doesn't include all of us behind the scenes making the PD meeting happen. That was actual attendees. We had 3 strands of programming, promising practices and programs, leadership and management, and evidence and evaluation. Within that, we offered a grand total of 74.5 hours of content. So just a few things that you could watch and participate in. That 74.5 hours was made up of 41 live sessions. That was 47.4 of those hours. And when you break that down, that was the 3 keynotes. We had 1 every day, 24 breakouts. We had 8 every day, 12 networking sessions, 4 every day, 1 focus group that was held on Wednesday morning, and 1 closing session at the end of the week, end of day Thursday. We also offered 20 on-demand sessions. So those were pre-recorded. Some of them were sessions from the 2021 project directors meeting, and others were from other TA events across the years that we thought were pertinent to current grantees. Those were on the Pathable site for you to enjoy as well for another 27.1 hours. Clearly, none of you attended all 74.5, nor was that an expectation. But just so that you know, there were much more than you were definitely able to get into. I did want to share the top 10 rated sessions. So the top rated session at the meeting was the Language Nest, Native Language and Our Youngest Learners. This was a session that was focused on the Language Nest model, which is doing immersion learning with early childhood learners. Then we had Let's Chat Mental Health. This was our networking session on mental health. Quick Connections counted for the next 3 slots here. Those were our quick speed networking sessions. And then the next ones that kind of rounded out our top 10, Secondary Traumatic Stress and Self-Care, which was presented by the National Native Children's Trauma Center. Program Peak Secondary Students, which was one of our networking sessions where you got to take kind of a virtual site visit into 2 of our high school programs. Storytelling during COVID-19, Our Smallest Warriors, Our Strongest Medicine. That was presented by Johns Hopkins and their Alaska Native and American Indian Health Center group. Then the Native Education Collaborative Circles of Reflection. This was on a model to be able to do better tribal consultation and better collaborative work on projects. It was presented by one of the comprehensive centers. And then finally, Program Peaks, Blending Academics and Culture was another one with a virtual site visit, looking into 2 programs that are doing just that, taking some innovative approaches to blending academics and culture. Now, as you look at those, if you're thinking, that really sounds like something I wish I would have been able to attend. Well, you are in luck. So the PD meeting content is available online for 1 year, which is part of why we wanted to make sure and include this in your talking circle so that you would know that and make sure everybody was aware that all of that is staying up on that website for the next year. So if there is a session that you're wanting to go back and watch again, or a session that you didn't get to attend that you want to watch, or maybe you want to have one of your team members watch, or even pull it up as part of a staff training or staff meeting, all of it's up there readily accessible to you for the next year. If you have any difficulty continuing to access the website, please reach out to us and we can help you troubleshoot that. You should just be able to log in the same way that you did that whole week, and everything is recorded. All the handouts are there, all the slide decks, everything. The only thing that's different is that now it's all on demand instead of live. Any questions? Just making sure I'm not skipping over anybody. Let's see. Are there any restrictions on sharing the information? No. No, you are welcome to share any of the sessions. Across the summer, because it does take a little bit for this, but across the summer, we will be moving all the recordings onto our YouTube channel as well, which will make it even easier to share with folks who weren't able to attend the actual meeting. So hopefully by the time we see you again in August, I can share that they're all up on the YouTube channel as well, so that you'll have 2 different ways that you can access that. But no, you are welcome to share that with anyone that you think would find a benefit in it. Any other questions? All right. Well, Alani put together this nice list of all of the breakouts, since those were the more content-driven sessions from each day of the project directors meeting. And she highlighted the ones that she thought particularly kind of connected to different things that NYCP grantees had brought up in previous talking circles. So in particular, the battling online learning fatigue. If you're continuing to do online learning and are looking for some tools or strategies to keep that fresh, to keep your students or even your staff from feeling quite as burnt out with that. You might want to check that session out. The culture-based learning was really looking at one program in particular in South Dakota and how they're integrating culture into their entire curriculum, their assessment, everything. Then is culturally responsive education evidence-based? This was a session that was presented by a couple of members of our TA team, sharing some resources and just some different ways to look at being evidence-based. I think we've talked multiple times about how the department really wants grantees thinking about things that are evidence-based, but some of the traditional ways of looking at that, such as just heading over to the What Works Clearinghouse and pulling down a research report, doesn't always work that great for some of the things that we want to integrate into our programs. And so they really talked through some alternative ways to think about being evidence-based. And then storytelling during COVID-19, our smallest warrior, our strongest medicine. That was that session that was on that top 10 list earlier. This is about 2 storybooks that were created by the Johns Hopkins group in collaboration with a number of different entities and communities that are available for free, along with lots of other resources with the books, all about kind of bouncing back and finding resilience through the pandemic. Then Every Native American Student Counts. That one was presented regarding how to make sure that students are counted appropriately and are receiving the services that they should be able to access, and lots of great resources around that. Then as we head over into Thursday, the one she had recommended there were an Indigenous approach to logic models and program evaluation. We had a subject matter expert come in and do that session, really sharing some non-traditional approaches to doing logic models and program evaluation, and her work in a variety of communities to make that more community driven. And the final one that she had recommended was the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network, supporting student mental health. And this group came in and was able to share with us tons of resources. They have a new curriculum that came out recently, all about really helping educators of any kind be able to support students' mental health a little more effectively. And they have a number of different resources available. They have events all the time. So they were sharing all the different things that they have available for everyone for free. So those are the ones in particular that Alani thought might be of interest based on things that folks had brought up previously. I would be curious to know, though, were there any sessions that any of you attended that you would particularly recommend to your fellow NYCP grantees that you think they might find interesting or of benefit? And like I said, we're a small group, so feel free to unmute or type in chat, whatever's easier.
This is Allison, and I'm having a really hard time remembering the name of the breakout session, but it was about, I remember she started playing a guitar, and it was inspiring, and she was talking, and I can't remember the name of that meeting. If
That
you
was
know
actually our keynote on day 3.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It's three different
Oh.
three different days of stuff and 2 different
Yeah.
conferences happening at the same time. It was kind of packed for me.
Yeah, a lot of information. No worries. But yes, that was the keynote on day 3 with Tanaya Winder. And that is up and people can watch that one as well.
Sarah, this is Jack Bareilles. Can you hear me? I don't remember. The networking ones were always just, I hit at least 3 of them, and it's always so good, with a couple of prompts, just talk and share experiences, because you always end up learning stuff. So I'm always a big fan of that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, and I see Joy in the chat was agreeing with you that she particularly enjoys the networking ones as well. Yeah, and now I'll say those are recorded. I would tell you probably the program peaks and the grantee glimpses, watching the recording would be enjoyable because you're still going to get all the same content. I'll say the quick connections and the let's chat might not be as enjoyable to watch as a recording, because for instance, like in quick connections, everybody keeps going out to breakout rooms, so there's not much on the actual recording. But the program peaks and the grantee glimpses, all of that's recorded, so you'll kind of get the same information with that one. Any other sessions that you might recommend to your peers here? All right, well, if you think of anything, feel free to pop that in the chat. And we're going to do just a little bit of reflection. When Chris was sharing, she liked the trauma-informed practices. That was another one that was presented by the National Native Children's Trauma Center. And yeah, we had some good feedback on that session as well. So we were kind of already talking about ideas and strategies and sessions that stood out to you. If there were any great takeaways, even if it's not a specific session, but just a particular idea, feel free to share those. I'd also love to know, did it make you think, are there other topics that you'd like to learn more about? Maybe one that you got a little bit, but you want to go deeper, or a topic that you were like, well, I wish we'd had a session on this at the meeting. Any ideas, thoughts?
What do you think, Chris? It looks like you want to.
I know she looks deep in thought.
I know. She has some good ideas. What do you think?
Oh, Chris, you look like you're sharing something on mute.
The reason why I'm deep in thought is because I love the question. And I don't know yet, but thank you so much for asking, because I think I want to put some thought into it. I do want to add, and I did tell Julian this myself, I happened to be on a Zoom call and he was present. I felt his opening comments were so impressive. He has a style of communicating, and his voice is so soothing. And I felt like listening to him, he really set the tone for the conference.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
But let me think about it.
Yeah.
And see if I can.
No, and I think you bring up a good point. We do want your thoughtful feedback from everyone. So feel free, don't feel like if you don't answer right this minute, you can't give feedback on any of these topics. We welcome feedback on this, not just during your talking circle, but whether you're sending us an email or, asking to chat and we can talk through any ideas that you might have. We're always looking to get that feedback from all of you, because ultimately that's who we want all of this to work for, are all of the grantees.
One of the things I find myself thinking about a lot is I'm wondering if other tribes, other programs are learning what we are learning, that our students are really struggling in school. And why?
Yeah.
Are there commonalities between the projects? And is it a short period of time? Because we do know our post-secondary students are doing extremely well in our colleges and universities.
Mhm.
There seems to be some serious ruptures, and we see it in our public school, and it causes me to pause. Is Indian education changing? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'd be curious with those who are on the call, being that you're actually in the field with students, does anyone feel like they're seeing some of the same things that Chris is seeing? Or not? Feel free to say that isn't your experience with your community and your students.
This is Jack, and I'm fortunate to work not to be able to help to support our American Indian programs, but a number of programs across my school district and a lot of our neighboring districts. And it's universal right now. The students and frankly the adults. This has been another tough year, and if you look at our DNF lists at the high school level, if you look at our attendance or chronic absenteeism across, here are the 2 counties in Northwest California that I'm closest, that I work in and and live in. There's just been so much stress on everybody that it's, I think among our American Indian group, certainly, and frankly, among a lot of other groups. And so I think what Chris is seeing is sadly, I think a lot more universal than we'd like to see.
Thank you, Jack.
And I would like to chime in on that, Chris, too, because and Jack, you're right. I think as far as around all education at this moment, we're just seeing a decline based on just the hardships that we've gone through and the rushing into the different learning styles and teaching styles that we've had to go through. And being a teacher for a lot of years in our Indian education world too, it was our kids. I would like to see, that was a great question from Chris, and I would like to see what our NYCP, because you guys are doing a great job. When I look at your APRs, when I talk to you all, whenever we come together and have all these discussions, a lot of you have gone above and beyond during this COVID time and have been able to reach your kids and still been able to, you've been able to hit those targets that your program measures. You've been able to do that. I would really like to see, what are you all doing different than our schools that don't have an NYCP program or don't have a program, not even specifically NYCP, but may not have a program like you're running at your schools or through your tribes. What's the difference? Why are your kids doing better than kids who aren't receiving services like yours? I would love to see that I would do that research. But that's a great question, Chris, and hopefully we can look at that soon and see what's going on.
That would be great.
And I think too, that's something that we can also have some continued conversation around. It might be something that, because it is a little bit deeper of a topic, we may want to send that out in advance of the talking circle and let people know that might be one of the things that we'll be chatting about, so that folks can come feeling a little bit more prepared to share. And that way we may get a little more conversation around that. But I don't, in my conversations with grantees, as I meet with them on Zoom and discuss various things, I am hearing many of those same things echoed. I don't think you are alone at all. Anyone? Anyone else want to kind of chime in on that one? All right. Well, then I'm going to suggest, yeah, that let's kind of continue that conversation, because I think there is more to think about and chat about, but it may, like I said, benefit from a little fair warning so that people can come ready for that conversation.
That would be a fun research though.
Yeah.
That would be amazing just to sit down. If I had all the time that I needed to do that.
I agree, Donna. It really would be a worthy research project. I think it's really important because I love the fact that the Office of Indian Education, I mean, the training that we're receiving and the support that we're receiving from our program specialists, it's incredible. And it would be nice to know whether we're impacting our students.
Yeah. Well, and one thing also that we could probably bring out more as we head into the fall, that internally we do a bit of evaluation around the collective information in the APRs. And not that the APRs are the end all be all of information about all of your programs by any means, but I think we could probably do a better job of sharing some of the information that we glean from all of your APRs and how that lets us, to a certain extent, look across all of the programs. So yeah, as we head into the fall and we're pulling that information out, that's another thing that we can make sure and bring to light a bit more in the talking circle so that all of you have that information as well.
And I agree, Chris. In this job, I want to see the data. I want to see that we're impacting our students across the board, across NYCP. But that teacher in me at the same time is we have to have faith that, a seed is being planted in one of them, all of them. We may not see the results tomorrow or the next day or the next year, but it's there. And we may see it 10 years down the road with some of these kids, but it's there. And, their tribe will be there to support them, and other community members will remember them, teachers and you all. So that's the teacher part of me that believes, that we just have to have faith that everything that we're doing is impacting these kids across the board.
I think that's so true, because we honestly are seeing it in our post-secondary students. Again, the 2-year students and the 4-year students. Their success rate in both groups, it's like 90% plus. And then we have more of our tribal people in graduate school also. So you're right. We're not going to see it today, but we can see the results long-term. And have to just keep believing that.
Well, and those are amazing results you're seeing in your post-secondary, but yeah, I think all of us have maybe had a little more challenge of late, maybe always keeping the faith that what we're doing is paying off, even like y'all have been sharing, even if you don't see it immediately, it's growing and growing and growing and building and building and building. All right. Well, to kind of, and Allison chiming in, agreeing as well. And then I also wanted to pull from the chat a shout out for, this was one of the program peaks that had Navajo Prep and Waduka Dotting. So they were sharing that they really liked how culture was being used and implemented with the youth at Navajo Prep. And then with Waduka Dotting, the other school's efforts in nature. So if you wanted to check out that session, that one, it was it's not on the chart, so I can't show you on the chart, but it's the one with program peaks, blending academics and culture. All right. Any other ideas, thoughts, things that you would hope that we would explore? And I'll even bring up our next topic, whether it be at the PD meeting, as well as Alani was hoping to also get some feedback on topics that you might like to see in our upcoming talking circles, whether it be potentially some information from the PD meeting, one of these areas that you'd like to delve into, or other things going on in your program, your community. And I see Jack has his hand up.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're not interrupting at all.
So I help run a school climate transformation grant, a U.S. grant for my district, serves a number of our districts. But we always go to the national PBIS conference in Chicago, and we always the day before have the chance to bring the school climate folks together. And I know in October this year in Oklahoma City is the National Indian Education Association conference. And I would, if you guys were open to it, the idea of maybe having us be able to come together, even that afternoon before or something, for some of the different grantees to get there. And again, these ideas are, what are you doing that are helping, that really impacting kids positively? It's more work for you, and I apologize, but I know a lot of us go there already, and so it's a coming together opportunity. Can I lower my hand?
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I know that's something that we've done. It's been a couple of years now, but it is something that we have done in the past. So yeah, that's a great idea that we can definitely look into. Yeah, we welcome ideas even if they are extra work. Any other thoughts, ideas, things you were wishing, hoping for that would be helpful for us to, whether it be talk about in this kind of open forum, or if you want us to go out and try to find more resources for you, more expertise in this area, anything like that as well. Like I said, really, this is part of, as we kind of head into a little bit of a summer break, where we take some time to really make sure that we are making these TA opportunities as beneficial as possible for all of you, and making good use of your time too. Yeah. And our other Chris McIntyre.
Hi. As you asked about different things, I learned so much during the project directors meeting. And, I don't know if there were other topics that maybe didn't make the cut for the project director meeting that maybe could be shared occasionally during a talking circle. Yeah. But sometimes it's just good to hear the research, what other grantees are doing, what other tribal programs are doing, even if they're not a grantee, that might benefit our youth. I just feel like I wouldn't have thought of these things if they weren't on the agenda, but yet being there, I learned so much, and I find I do go back to the website and I listen to things I missed during the time there. So I just wanted to share that just as a thought for future talking stick sessions.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one thing I'll share, we've done with one of our other grantee groups that, was something they asked for, was we started talking circles, kind of featuring a grantee, not as being more or less, high quality or exciting than another, but just as a way to kind of show, okay, take a peek into what somebody else is doing. Look at what someone else is doing this month. And this is how they approach their work with their students. And so we just kind of take a peek into a different program each talking circle, not as the whole talking circle, but as just one chunk of the talking circle. So that might be something that y'all would find useful as well. But yes, the other part of your suggestion there, as far as are there topics that don't make the cut? Yes, we have a rather crazy spreadsheet of ideas that we start out with that get winnowed down to the actual sessions you end up seeing. So we can definitely use that as a springboard for more ideas for you. Any other? And then really specifically, is there anything you want to make sure that we cover in August? I know in August, particularly for all of you, we'll definitely be addressing some tips and reminders as we think about closing out your grant, because most of you will be wrapping up your grant the end of September. One question that always comes up, and I've already been getting emails about, is no cost extension. So I know for those of you who may have emailed, I sound like a broken record, but we're not doing no cost extensions yet because your grant's not over. So the expectation is that you are still providing great programs and services to students throughout the summer and beginning of the school year, and spending that money. If you have a large amount of money remaining, or even a small amount, and want to kind of talk through some ideas on how to purposefully and correctly spend down those funds, we are happy to take some time and brainstorm with you and talk with you, but we don't really start talking no cost extensions until we will discuss them at the August talking circle and provide directions and clarification and everything on that process then, because up until then, it's services, spending. But that will be a topic in August, that and preparing for grant closeout. But any other things that you hope we talk about in August? And I'll make sure they are on the docket.
Hey, this is Jack, and not necessarily for August, but eventually early literacy, science of reading, and because that's such it's so critically important.
Yeah.
Just you can't overestimate, you can't overstate it. But additionally, like for instance, I was reading with our county assistant soup this morning, and there's going to be in California, there's going to be a round of grants for schools. But mind you, I live in the school world, but for the elementaries to do literacy coaches and things like that. And then, working with our tribal communities, working with our schools on the reservations and things. It's so anything on that, I think, because boy, if tribal voices were pushing that this is such a critical issue, I think it would help light a fire under some of us K-12 people who don't take it off the record as seriously as we should, because I just can't, I wake up thinking about it, which I'd like not to.
Yeah, it's never too young to start with literacy.
You are speaking my language. I am a reading specialist, and I was talking to Donna Savis-Burns about this exact topic a couple of weeks ago, and she's a language literacy curriculum specialist. So we were coming up with a lot of different ideas as far as early reading, reading in the science area, culturally relevant reading diagnosis, which I don't even know if that's out there, but I would love to research that at some point. I have all of these things I want to research and no time to do it. But
Donna's side job is going to be research.
Well, I got to finish my PhD at some point, so maybe that will be when I do it. But yeah, reading in the science area, reading in math. I don't know how much other educators are aware of reading and math they're like this. I mean,
absolutely.
It's amazing how much reading you have to do in math. And so I think that's a great idea. I think Donna Savis-Burns thinks that is a great idea as well, and we'll get together with Sarah and maybe hopefully come up with some of these ideas. This is my jam, guys. I love learning, teaching about how to help kids with reading. From
Jack, you hit the right audience. Yeah, it warms my little English teacher heart, and then you've got Donna's little. You hit the right audience.
Yes.
Excellent. Lovely. Good.
Thank you. And I see Wendy has her hand up.
Hi. Yeah. A suggestion for topics. Out here in Salt River, I feel like the older youth, maybe like 6th grade, junior high on up, the engagement with them is more difficult. I feel like a lot of programs tend to they lose that demographic. So just ideas of how to engage them, how to keep them interested, because our focus is literacy, but that demographic is just so hard for us to basically engage. Even when we do book distributions, we give out books at all levels, but we tend to have a ton of leftovers in that demographic. So just ideas about the older youth. I don't know if sometimes I just feel like it's just a challenge for us, basically.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense to me, because while I was saying my English teacher heart, I always, when I was in the classroom, taught junior high. So I taught junior high English, and I ran before and after school programs for junior high when I was still teaching. So yeah, I completely understand both the joy, the challenge, and the frustration of working with that particular age group. So we can definitely also provide some things around that and ideas and strategies. Definitely.
And I had pre-K, I taught pre-K, second, first, third, sixth, and high school. We're reading specialists in high school. And they were all great. I'm telling you, my freshmen were just like my pre-Kers. I just didn't have to tie their shoes or wipe their noses. At least not my freshmen, I didn't have to do that. I had to tell them, but you still have to tell them, tie your shoes, wipe your nose, wash your hands, but I didn't have to do it for them. But yeah, the reading at that age, and it's a whole scientific process. The reason why it's so much harder for kids at that age to even want to read, especially if they've been behind. And there's a whole gamut of reasons why they do that. But it's not that it's impossible to teach them. It's just that you have to go another route instead of the usual route. So that would be really fun to dive into for me. For you guys too, but for me
for all. Well, and I also see another topic down here, restorative justice. They've been working with a guest speaker whose work includes many projects. When she talks about the efforts and objectives involving both the tribe and local schools, I can see how beneficial our community here could be. I've heard a little about it, but very interested. Yeah, that would be another great topic that we could explore more. I know we had a little bit about this very topic in one of the sessions this year. It wasn't the focus of the whole session because it was one of the grantee glimpses. So we just got a peek into how one program was kind of addressing that. So I think taking a deeper dive into that would be really great. Excuse me. No, I love these ideas, and these are all topics we can definitely provide more around, and both through talking circles, and I'm thinking particularly on some of them, maybe some standalone events too, where other grant programs can participate. Because I think it's always great too to not just put ourselves in our NYCP bubble, but also see if there are other programs that can provide a little input too. All right, any other ideas?
reading and technology. That's a good one. That's also possible and doable. I've done it.
A literacy series.
Yes. I could write a book on that.
Well, that's when you get your PhD. So you got to save that for that. All right. Well, if you have other great ideas, like I said, don't feel like you have to just share them now. If they pop into your head later, send those over, shoot them to me via email, give us a call, whatever's easiest. With that though, I'm going to share a couple of exciting events and things. The one I really want to highlight is we're having our 50th anniversary celebration. So I know all year we've had in every event the slide about, save the date, save the date, save the date. Well, the date is rapidly approaching. So on June 23rd, which I just realized the slide doesn't say June 23rd, but we'll send that out to you via email as well. But June 23rd is OIE's 50th anniversary celebration. So we have a full day of things planned from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So I do know that for a few of you on the Alaskan time zone and the Pacific time zone, that starts a little early, but remember, it's come and go. So, depending upon what your day looks like that day, feel free to hop in and out throughout the day. Everything that we're doing is going to be available virtually so that you can participate no matter where you are. We're going to kick off with an opening session. We have a number of speakers for that opening session. Then we're going to be announcing the winners of our student artist competition, which I'm super excited about. We're going to have most of the winners on live, which is really fun to be able to see all of the students who have done this great work. You'll be able to download what I think is a really cool bookmark, kind of see tying back into the literacy, really cool bookmark that has all of the winning artwork on it and is just neat. So that'll just be really fun and uplifting, I think. From 12 to 1, we're going to have a session on the history of the Office of Indian Education. So definitely something where you can get a little more background. We're going to make it fun though. Then from 1:15 to 2:45, we're actually bringing together the former directors of OIE and doing a little panel there and kind of talking OIE over the years. From 3 to 4, you'll see it says student testimonial recognition. You may wonder what that is. That's really a focus on the formula grants. So while this is a discretionary grant and most of you live primarily in the discretionary grant world, I know many of you also work with the formula grants through OIE. And so they have gotten together a lot of students and various grantees and just kind of reflecting on the work that's been done with formula funds over the years. And then we will wrap up with a closing session with Holly Mackey from the White House Initiative and wrap our day. So you can see lots and lots and lots. I will put that link over in the chat box so that you can click and register. It went out via our newsletter distribution list on Tuesday. And then I'm going to send it out via just our normal email distribution list tomorrow. So you'll see it come across a couple of times, just making sure that everybody's aware and has the opportunity to register if you want to attend. It is the same Zoom link all day, so you're not having to keep track of a bunch of stuff. You can just keep clicking that same link whenever you have time to pop in throughout the day. Any questions on that one? And we are going to record it. Probably going to pop it up in those different sessions though, because most likely watching 6.5 hours, if anything, might be a bit much. Okay. So once you've registered for that, then the last thing we really wanted to talk about today is it's a good time of year to think about your budget. Whether you like thinking about your budget or not, it's still a good time of year to think about your budget. So we are more than halfway through the year. As you look at your spending, have you drawn down at least 60% of your grant funds? If you have not, it's definitely a time to be thinking about how are you going to spend down those monies? What can you provide within the scope of your project across these summer months and as we kick off the school year to be able to spend down those funds? Next question to ask yourself, did you have carryover this year? Some of you may have had just a little, some of you may have had a lot, but remember you need to spend your carryover before you spend your current year funds. So have you expended and exhausted all of those carryover funds? And then finally, do you have a plan in place where you feel confident that you're going to expend all your monies by September 30th, 2022? The last day that you can spend money. Now, remember, you will have a period after that where you can make a final drawdown. So you don't have to have made your final drawdown by September 30th, but you have to have encumbered, you have to have spent the money by September 30th. So just to kind of clarify that, because I know it can be kind of confusing, that means maybe you had a contractor, well, they completed the service that they were providing to students by September 30th, but maybe they didn't invoice you until September 30th or October 1st. So you didn't actually pay them until October 1st. So you couldn't draw down those funds. You spent it though. They provided the service and completed providing that service by September 30th. If they're not going to complete the service until October 30th, not allowable. That's when you would be having to think about what we don't talk about till August, a no cost extension, which is not guaranteed. So right now your plan needs to be able to expend all your monies by September 30th. Services must end, spending must end by then. And remember, if you have questions about any of this, if you need to talk through any of this, if you need to brainstorm ideas, that is what we're here for. We are happy to make time to have those conversations with you. And it is also a really good time to think, do you need a budget revision? It's never too late. Well, it is sometimes too late. If you wait till September 29th, it's too late for a budget revision. But now is a really good time for a budget revision. So as you're looking at your plan, maybe you do need to move some monies around a little bit so that you have money in the spots where you actually need to spend money. Maybe you thought you were going to be able to do some travel. And that hasn't worked out. So you need to move that to contractual to actually be able to do some services with kids. This is the time to go ahead and put together, if you need to do another budget revision, to make sure that your spending is on track. Remember that if you're doing a budget revision, we have a form for that. It's the same one you used back in November. If you don't know where that is, happy to send it to you again. And then you email those budget revisions directly to Donna Bussell for approval. Any budget questions?
Sarah, I think the answer is probably no, based on what you said, but we talked about services, but for instance, if we were ordering, classroom materials or something like that, the order was placed, call it on September 20th, but didn't get delivered till October 12th or something. Is that's not allowed, correct?
So I see Donna heading for the unmute button, so I'm going to let her answer that one.
So if you're purchasing supplies or, and that was approved in your budget and you purchased that before the end of September 30th and that was encumbered before September 30th, you may not get an invoice. Sometimes you don't get invoices for those until after September 30th, but you purchased it and provided everything before September 30th. It's allowed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you purchase it after September 30th.
Oh, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
Without a no
Right.
cost.
Yeah.
Great, cool. Thank you.
And just in case you need it, I am putting that budget revision form over in the chat box just to make it easier. Any other budget questions? And really, as we're kind of nearing the end of our topics today, if you have any questions that you wanted to ask in general, I know Donna was going to share a little bit about a survey that hopefully you've already completed or are going to do later this afternoon.
Yeah, and just from looking, I'm pretty sure everybody on here has already completed this survey, but it's the grantee satisfaction survey from OESC. So if you see that, just, complete that. It shouldn't take you more than 14 minutes to complete it. It's talking about if you're satisfied with us, with our TA team, so we use that going forward to see where we can improve. And if you did not receive one, let me know, just email me and I will point you in the right direction.
And that only goes to project directors, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions that anyone has? Anything you need assistance with today? All right. Well, as you mull that over, just a reminder that we don't have a talking circle in July. We find that there are too many people out of pocket. And so we're taking a little mini break there. We'll be back in August on August 18th at our normal time. And then again in September on September 15th. So those will be your last 2 talking circles of the grant year. But you may have questions come up before then. We do still have office hours every month. We'll be continuing that all throughout the summer. So our next one is June 30th, followed by July 28th, August 25th, and our last one of the year, September 22nd. So remember, those are our optional come and go office hours. We're on there the whole hour, no matter what. So you can pop in at any point within that hour to ask questions, brainstorm with the group, or just hang out and hear what other people ask and talk about. We always have some folks who join just to be able to kind of garner great ideas from the masses. So those are really the only events that we have coming up over the summer. We're keeping it a little bit quieter. So let us know if you need anything over the summer. While we're not having a lot of live events, we're all still here. None of us are off. None of us are going on any fabulous tropical vacays. So we will still be here, happy to meet with you, answer your emails, your calls, your Zoom requests. So feel free to reach out throughout the summer. Hopefully you have some fun summer plans though. So we'll look forward to hearing about that in August. As we wrap up, I am going to pop up our typical end of event poll. If you don't mind taking that, it should pop up on your screen. Usually takes 2 to 3 minutes tops, depending upon how fast a clicker you are. And then I know most of you already have this information, but just in case you don't, here's all of our email addresses, both for Donna Bussell as well as the OIETA team, how you can follow us on Twitter, and a reminder to just make sure and always include your grantee and PR number when you send those emails. It just helps us be able to get back to you a little faster and make sure that we're referencing the right grant, because often there are a lot of grants that have the same name or the same grantee. So make sure we're giving you an accurate answer. Well, we're ending just a scotch early. We will stay on. Happy to chat if you have questions or ideas for us. Happy to stay on for that. But otherwise, we'll give you back a little bit of your day today. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you all for coming.